what do you think about what happened to Philip and Elizabeth? How the series wrapped up for them?
Listen, I think once again it's a very honest and a very truthful ending to them. It's it's these people exist amongst us right now. The kids stayed behind. They went to Russia. Obviously, Carrie and Matthew, they don't speak Russian, but them as characters would speak Russian because they come from Russia. And they would, the interesting thing about their characters, though, Philip and Elizabeth, is that when they left Russia, it's almost like Soviet Russia was frozen in their minds and their imaginations. And this is why both Gabriel and Claudia did not talk about what's going on in the Soviet Union to them, because they did not want them to be exposed to the changes that the Soviet Union is going through. And so they were almost frozen in this time capsule in the time when they came to the US. So all these years later, for them to come back to the Soviet Union would have been quite an incredible revelation, because the country's changed so much, because we were by that stage in like mid 80s.
So interesting.
And they left in mid 70s.
So
we passed through the Reagan's era. We're now sort of, Gorbachev is at power. We're now basically working towards the disintegration of the Soviet Union.
So you were born it was the USSR then, right?
Yeah.
So you were born there, and then you lived there for not that long, right? Or maybe like a part of your childhood, or like tell me about that.
18 years.
Oh, you did 18? Oh, I thought.
Yeah, I grew up.
I read somewhere that you moved to New Zealand when you were like 7 or 8 or something. No.
Listen, there's so many stories, many stories about my life.
So let's get to the real stuff. So 18. So
I grew up, and I was born and I grew up there. And I lived through that time, and I lived through the fall of the Berlin Wall, and I lived through the crazy 90s in Russia, when it was very, life didn't mean anything. It was basically the US, America in the 1900s, the Wild West, lived through that. And I think our family moved in 95 or 96 something. No, 96, 97, I think. Because 95 I finished school. So yeah, 96, 97.
So interesting. So like, what kind of kid were you? Who were you in the family? What was your personality?
I was amazing.
Of course.
I was amazing. I was like the best kid on the block. Are you kidding me?
So give me some descriptors. What are some adjectives? What did you do? What were you like? How did your parents see you? What you were like? What? How would they describe you then?
Oh, you gotta ask my mom. My mom and my parents and grandma, who was a huge influence in my life. It was like a second mother to me. They did teach us. They had a piano teacher come, and for 6 years, my brother and I were studying piano. Meanwhile, of course, being kids of our age, we wanted to go out and play hockey and soccer, football, and around. So we did not want to study. We did not want to study music. But we had certain inclinations. My brother is terrific as far as picking up music. He can play anything. He can hear music and he can just play it. I can't. I can like sing in the shower, and that's only if nobody can hear me. I'll be so embarrassed. I'll be like, I'm sorry, is that too loud? But it was interesting, it was really, really, I think we are sort of part of that generation that was really broken in a way, because we lived, the kids of today, they were born and grew up under Putin. It's a completely different Russia. Our generation, we were born in a country that was a communist socialist state, and that was moving towards sort of changing its economical state before, all the changes that happened. And we lived through that. We lived through the time just similar to now, when, there's really, you walk into a store and there's nothing in the store. And there's absolutely zero leadership. Nobody knows what's happening. Overnight, from one of the superpowers, there was literally nothing in the country, and nobody knew what to do. So we all lived through that, and being resilient, we kind of found a way. And But I had to, my parents got divorced when I was 12. I was very young. So I had to grow up quickly. I had to, I had a younger brother, I had a mom and my grandma, and I had to, find work and help.
So what did you do? You found some jobs that would just give you enough money to kind of contribute to the...
Anything. Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't about finding a job that would give me enough money. It was about finding something that would give me money. And then when I was 14, I started working on a radio station, and that kind of took over. And I would study during the day, and I would work on a radio station at night. And it was wonderful. I've learned so, like, I was the youngest one there, and I've learned so much then. I think part of sort of what gravitated me towards storytelling was that I worked on a radio station, and kind of what I brought there was radio theater.
So that
And
makes
so at
sense.
very early age, I started to write stories and write scripts and create characters and leave it in my head. And kind of I was that guy. And then while I was there, I learned how to mix music and produce and sell advertising and this and that and the other. So when the program stopped being on air, I was still at the radio station. So, I was given my own shifts, and I kind of went from there. And I was 15 when I did that.
That's such an education. Like, you were really lucky to have all that experience. So what
Well,
you...
it was, but it was basically my attitude then, it was exactly the way it is now. I didn't believe that anything can stop me. Like, there was absolutely nothing. I don't know why or how, but I really felt like there's absolutely nothing I cannot do. So the way I got to work at the radio station was, me and a buddy of mine, we went there at the age of 14, and we were like, we want to do this program. We basically walked into a radio station. We didn't know what the right way was. We walked into a radio station, and we sat down with the GM and the producer there. They probably thought we were like, what are these kids? And we said, this is what we want to do. And they said to us, well, if you develop this program, we'll buy it from you. So literally a week later, we were back at the radio station with the plan, and they hired us to host it. And then my friend, he had an interest in cars, and so he peeled off to work for a magazine, and I was stuck with the program, and that's how it all began.
So you didn't even just go to get a gig, a job. You actually said, we're going to create our own radio program, and you created a whole thing, and produced it, and hosted it.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And they let
you
do
it. I had to go. Yeah, and I mean, they were very supportive.
Yeah.
But we still had to go and sell advertising and find money for the program to run, for the radio station to be paid, for producers to be paid to record it. Absolutely, yeah. And
I think I have a job for you. I have a job for you now. It sounds like all of those things would transfer well to really famous. That's great. But that's amazing you did that. So this is interesting. So you said you're the same way now, that you just don't see there not being a way. Like, you always think there's nothing that's going to stop you. Like, if you see something or imagine it or think of it, want to do it, whatever, you're just going for it, and you're not getting in your head about, oh, who's going to do this for a couple of 14-year-olds or whatever. You've always been like that, it sounds like. Yeah.
I don't believe that there is, like, the only thing that's stopping us from doing what we're born to be is us. We as a race, as people, we're so in our heads. A lot of the time we don't go out and do things because we've already found the reason why it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And that's what there's a lot of people who don't do many of the things that they really are passionate about and they really want to do. There are the two most important days in a person's life is when he's born or she's born, and when that person understands why he's born. And then until we either chase this meaning our whole lives or we're not. And I kind of, without thinking about it, that was me. I was kind of always chasing this meaning, and I never chose acting. I did a lot of things along the way. I went to university, I got my MBA, and what I wanted to do was tell stories. I felt that this MBA? Is what. Yeah, my first degree is I got an honors degree in international relations and political science, and I have an MBA.
So Okay, so back
But I
up a
don't
little
talk
bit.
about it a lot. I'm like,
Okay, but I'm gonna tell. I have an accounting degree, so I feel you.
yeah,
I'm in a similar thing. I got an accounting degree, and then I became a therapist
yeah,
before I realized that like there's something about therapy that I like, but it's something else. There's something else, and so I kept going, and now this is the kind of interviewing I do. So I had that accounting degree, and
so we're very alike. Absolutely.
exactly. So I get it. I feel you, and it's like I don't talk about the accounting degree a lot. However, I do realize that it's interesting for people to hear like, wait, what? So you didn't necessarily know exactly what you wanted from day one, but it does lead you down this path, and it's interesting, and it's a little bit, you don't necessarily know at the time what it's bringing you to, but if you know you're going somewhere and you have it in your head and in your heart that you're kind of looking for something that's right, that
Right.
feels right, which I think you're talking about as like a purpose or whatever. It's the same idea, I think, for finding what's right and what fits for who you are, and getting to the point where you can be everything that you are. So I get it. So I'm interested in that. So going back, so you got your political science international degree, and then you have an MBA, because that's a big deal. An MBA, it's not just an undergrad in business. So you did that, and then tell me what you were looking for and why you went there, and then what.
Well, so when I finished university with my degree in politics, I realized that it's not enough, because I understood kind of, I could see between the lines of what's going on in the world, but I didn't quite understand one of the most important driving forces, which was the economics. And that's why I was like, oh, well, I guess I got to go and study economics now. So that's what brought me there. But I never wanted to work in that field. It's not to say that I never will, because to me, where I am right now in my life, it's not that acting is the end of the way. Right now, this is what I do, and this is what I enjoy, and I still love seeing the life through the eyes of another person. Um, but I can see that I'm also enjoying directing, and I'm enjoying producing, and I'm enjoying every aspect of storytelling. So I see how down the track um, all those qualifications will come in handy, and how the business aspect of, because understanding end-to-end filmmaking is one thing, but if you can bring it together with understanding of business, then all of a sudden you understand, and you can be useful in producing something and help tell the story and help make the story possible, the story that would not be made otherwise without you. And I look forward to this stage in my life when I kind of decide to hang up my acting boots and say, okay, you know what, it's time to tell these stories in a different capacity.
That is so interesting, though, because that is funny. That it's the same thing that I was saying before. Like the places I've been in the past have helped me do what I'm doing now, but like at the time it didn't seem like it at all, and it seems like such a far cry from it, but it does all add up. So when you are one day, you have this big production company, and maybe you'll do a little cameo in one of your movies or whatever you're going to produce, it's all going to make sense. That MBA is really going to have come in handy. And not only that, but back to the radio station and learning how to sell, how to get ads. Boom, you need to sell you need to market the movie too, right?
That's the plan. I mean, I can't call it a plan. It's not really a plan. It's something that I believe that is naturally and organically is going to happen.
Yeah. So
because
so
I'm not
me,
the kind of, like, I'm not going to just sit and wait for somebody to say, hey, you know what, this is the right role for you. I'm just going to go out and create a role for myself, hopefully,
I
and
think
then
that the most
role for other people as well.
I think that's what a lot of like very successful actors have come to the point of realizing too, right? Because you can't just wait around sitting for the phone to ring, or sit around waiting for the phone to ring, and you can't just wait for the perfect part. It's not necessarily going to be out there. So it's when you can get to the point where you create those roles for you, then you really get a lot more control over what you want to do.
No, but it's not just about control. What it is about for me personally is that I believe there is an element of telling stories which matter. And this is what storytelling should be about. Like, even in the time what we're experiencing right now, it is our responsibility as entertainers and as artists to unify people and to bring light into people's lives and bring positive energy into people's lives. And I wish more actors and artists and musicians would sort of partake in this movement, because it is at the end of the day who we are. You know, it's been like this from the beginning of time, and this is like this now. And these are incredibly difficult times, and the world's need more artists, more actors, more storytellers, more musicians to bring light into people's lives, because everybody's stuck in their apartments right now. And those, like, the fortunate ones are stuck. You know, a lot of people are not stuck, and they cannot be stuck. The medical personnel cannot even go home because they're stuck in hospitals surrounded by sick people. They don't want to bring this to their houses, so they sleep in the hospitals. This should not be happening in the 21st century.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
and it should not be happening. You know, we can walk around and say how we're this amazing race that's taken over the world. Well, there's a lot of things we didn't think about.
So when you were saying before about how it's kind of similar to what you grew up with, like what you're seeing here now, it kind of rings a bell and feels like this reminds you of a place where you've been before.
Yeah, well, this is where these are the times that really test the character, and some people sort of fold and fumble, and some grow. One of the I strongly believe that one of the reasons we're experiencing what we're experiencing right now, not just in the US but around the world, is because when the pandemic started, we did not unify. We did not help those who needed it. When China needed it, help. We just kind of took a step back, and we watched what's going to happen, and then we'll go from there. And that's why, as of a week ago, there's still people swimming around the beaches in Australia, and people are still walking around and doing their normal thing. And you know, and in Brazil, they're canceling the quarantine.
I can't.
So at the
I
end of
know.
at the end of the day, people sort of like get so attached to their flag and their nation rather than who they are. We are all the same, and we should be helping one another. And if we were helping one another back then, a month ago, we would not have to deal with what we're dealing with right now. And the US would not be the #1 country in the world in this sort of pandemic cases and sick cases and the number of deaths. So
Yeah, I'm hopeful that this whole situation, I mean, I think that you can see there are, in many ways, people are coming together like nobody was before. Like you're saying, nobody was unified before. And I'm not saying everybody is unified now, but I think that sometimes this kind of thing can bring that out in people. And I do feel like we're all in the same boat. But again, like you were saying, the lucky ones are all in the same boat. People who are complaining that they're bored and they're locked in or whatever. But it's the idea of, are you stuck at home or are you safe at home? Safe. And so we're all, whoever's home, we're lucky, but also we're all bored or whatever to some degree, but we're all in the same situation. And you don't want to see anybody at the beach or wherever else, because we're all here to protect each other. So even if we're home and not infected, we're still going to stay home for everybody else. And that's how it should be, not just for us. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just think it's a
we
chance to come
can, but you
together.
see, we can stay at home. There's a lot of people who can, not just because of their job description, but there's a lot of people who cannot help themselves. You know, you can go out, you can go stock up and, you know, sit at home and work just the way you and I are having each other right now. But there's a lot of people who are elderly. There's a lot of people who are in nursing homes. There's a lot of people who don't have kids to bring food to them. You know, they can't get in a car and drive somewhere. You know, in Russia, for example, there's a quarantine for anybody over 65. They can't be on the street. Well, okay, well, if the elderly couple lives together and they're not allowed to go on the street, how are they supposed to go and get the food if their kids are in a different city? What are they gonna do? What are they supposed to do?
What are they
Provisions are
supposed to
made?
do? What are they
I don't
saying?
know. I don't know. Listen, I don't follow it. I try to focus on the positive news and not the negative news. I can see again. Listen, we can just drive each other insane talking about what should have been done, because every country is walking around saying, listen, we're the best, no, we're the best, no, we're the best. And when a tragedy happens, this really kind of shows how ready we are. You know, we've been experiencing a pandemic just about every year for the last 10 years, and we don't have face masks. I bought 2 boxes. My brother lives in London. My mom lives in Spain, and they couldn't get any face masks. She just couldn't. They were not available. So I bought 2 boxes of face masks here through Amazon, like $120 each, and I sent them to them.
Yeah.
Those boxes are $10, and I paid 120. Why is this happening? Why is this allowed? Why didn't the government step in until later? Why didn't they step in and say, hey, we will control the flow of medical equipment? We deal with this every year. It's like a big surprise. Why is it a big surprise? We've been, Hollywood was making films about fighting aliens, God knows how many years. Learn from that. Watch the Aliens or Independence Day. It's all there.
Yeah, and not just that. There's also pandemics like Outbreak and Contagion.
Yes. Watch the films that were made 20 years ago. Yeah. They will tell you step by step an emergency plan of what you got to do to combat the pandemic. And we weren't ready, and not just us. No country was ready. That's why we're experiencing what we're experiencing.
Yeah. Have you? By the way,
nobody helped one another.
Right. I hear you. Just to mention what you said about Outbreak. Have you seen Outbreak? Have you watched it recently or any of those movies?
No, I refuse to watch it.
Oh my God, so good. We watched it. It was like the second day. My daughter was in Spain actually, and she flew home like the day, right, the morning after Trump announced that there would be no European travel anymore, coming to the US. And so I quickly got her on a plane and brought her home. And maybe the next night we all just sat around as a family and watched Outbreak. I have to tell you, it was good. I mean, half of us were kind of freaked out, I guess. And the other half was like, oh, it's exactly what I needed right now. But it's interesting to watch it now. It's like, yep, same thing, just slightly different.
I prefer watching comedy.
What do you watch?
Comedy. I just a lot of stand-up, a lot of the things that I never watched before. Some in English, some in Russian. It doesn't really matter. Anything that can make me happier and more positive when everybody else is struggling to be positive, I will take that. Because I feel that nobody's gonna do it for me. Do you know what I mean? And so it doesn't really matter what language it is. I watched the Invisible Man last night, the horror film.
Wait, what is it?
It's called The Invisible Man. You know the story, The Invisible Man?
No,
yeah. So there's a film that's come out, and it's called The Invisible Man. And it's a horror film. It's more of a suspense film. Like I tell you what, the best remedy from stress is watching a horror film.
Well, this is what I'm telling you. That's the kind of thing that I was saying. There are two things. Either you watch something light and hilarious and like totally unrealistic, or you watch something that's like really kind of scary and like pressing and dangerous, like Outbreak, or a horror movie. Same thing. I watched something called Super 8 last week. I think it was a Steven Spielberg and J.J. Abrams combo movie from I don't know, 2011 or something. I don't know how I missed it, but it was perfect. It wasn't a horror movie, but there was a little fantasy mixed in, and it was scary. That's exactly.
Yeah, you have the adrenaline running. Exactly. You're just like jolt.
Yeah. Lean into the adrenaline. Exactly. So The Invisible Man, I have to put that on my list now. What is that on?
I hope you enjoy it.
Netflix or something?
I don't know. I'm subscribed to like every possible platform. So I think I was just browsing through it and I found it.
The problem with
it's something because it's current. It's amongst one of the like in the theaters because nobody's going to the theaters right now. So it's one of the like in the theaters kind of playlist.
So they released it, or did they release it early? Oh, it's on. I see what you're saying.
I think it was supposed to be on in a cinema, or it is in the cinema. I don't know, but they released it through that platform for people to watch when they're at home.
Gotcha. Well, there is lots of good stuff. I'm going to put that on my list. So this is obviously a different time, but when there isn't a pandemic going on and you're not home all the time or going to your studio and recording things, what do you do? Like, tell me about your life in Los Angeles. Who do you hang out with? What do you do? You sail.
I sail. Yeah.
You have a boat?
I don't have a boat. No, not yet. I'm working on it.
Well, you know what they say about you were saying about the best 2 days of your life, right? There's an expression about boats, right? You know what it is? Have you heard it?
What?
That the You know what the best day of your life is? It's the day that you buy your boat. And you know what the second best day of your life is?
When
It's
you
the
sell
day
it.
you sell your boat.
This is it's a full-time job. Because I was, I started sailing. I was 5, and I went through dinghies all the way to like ocean racing, and I still race out of New York with the crew. We did the Newport to Bermuda race a couple of years ago, and all the
Cool.
races around New York. It was really cool. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But here in LA, I don't race because I prefer to stay with one crew, and we've become friends. And when you ocean race, it's very important to be able to rely on the person you're with, and so it's a lot of trust.
Right.
But here, I kind of every now and then I go sailing, and I just kind of go out and look at the ocean, and one day I'll be there sailing.
So you don't live in New York.
That day hasn't come yet.
It's coming. I feel it. It's coming.
Yeah.
So are you like part-time in New York too, or no?
No,
No,
I lived there when we shot The Americans.
I figured.
For
Yeah.
many years, I was still living in LA, but I was flying to New York to work. And then I went and I lived in New York for 2 years. I think it was season 4 and 5, and then I moved back to LA. So when I was living there, I think I was living there, or maybe I was at NYU. Anyway, it was like maybe 3-4 years ago is when I decided to join the crew and race.
Okay. But I figured it would be better. I mean, how often can you sail from New York? It's limited season, right?
Yeah, but it's fantastic. Like there's a lot
Why?
more places to sail out of New York than out of LA.
Well, why is that? Like
Out
what?
of LA, it's only up and down the coast, and then next thing you know, you got to go to Hawaii or South Pacific. It's a long voyage. In New York, you can sail
Uh,
around the Sound. You can sail around the Long Island area and go to Maine and go to Rhode Island. You can sail down the coast, South Carolina to Florida, the Keys and Havana and the Antilles. All the Caribbean islands. So
yeah, that's true. There are plenty of, I mean, I always think about
yeah,
that for drives too. It's a lot easier, but California is big. You have a lot there, but I see what you're saying. If you're doing a trip from one place to another, you have a lot on the
yeah.
East Coast.
Yeah,
So
you sail for a week on the East Coast and you're in Bermuda. You sail for a week in out of LA, and
it would be nice to be sailing around the Caribbean right now. I'm just saying, I'm like kind of imagining that would
I
be
did
really
that.
nice. You
I did
did?
that in November. Yeah, for
Which islands?
10 days. Out of Martinique, and then all the way down to Tobago Keys. Yeah, for 10
That's
days basically. We had a 42 foot catamaran, and we brought it up to like 19 knots. It was fast.
so how many people are you with when you're doing this? Like, are you with friends or
So the
like,
catamaran was 5. It was the captain and the owner of the boat I raced for in New York. He was there. He organized the trip. So it was him and his wife and me and sort of everybody else was from New York. His friends were from New York.
okay.
So it was a very social trip.
That sounds, oh, that'd be so good, especially right
Yeah, you
now.
wake up at look, you have no idea. You wake up at 5 in the morning and you jump in the water that's like 100 degrees, and you swim with turtles. It's incredible. Really, really, it's incredible.
It does sound good.
And you see, being the Caribbean, you see what the pirates used to see back in the day.
Like what?
Well, because you are seeing the islands from the ocean. You are not basically flying there on a plane and you land and you see the towns and the jungle. You get there by boat. So as you sail past the islands, you basically are taking the same routes the pirates were taking back in the day. So you see what they see, the hills that they saw, the jungle that they saw. I mean, surely they didn't see the towns, but they saw everything else. And you can relate to that pirate inside of you kind of comes out and plays.
That is so cool. Well, you'll be back to it soon, I guess. I would like to do that too. It
Hope
sounds so
so.
good. It's true though, when you go on vacation, it's nice to take a little boat ride, even if you're not
Mm,
sailing there, to see it from that perspective. Totally different than
yeah.
when you're flying, and you're right. So can I ask you some deeper questions about life? You ready for
You can ask me
these?
anything you want. Yeah.
All right. So what is one of your life regrets?
Mm, life regrets. I don't know. I think about it a lot. Um, I I don't know, something that depended on me or something that sort of was just circumstantial.
Whichever is. See, I tend to think of the word regret as something that you wish you did differently. But I
Mm-hmm.
know that technically there are two definitions of regret. So like it can be you personally, or it can be something that you wish didn't happen. But I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it's more, the personal is more of the thing that I think of.
I don't know. When people say, "Oh, you shouldn't regret anything because that's what makes who you are," I believe that. When I was younger, like I did a lot of work on myself for personal development and professional development. And when I was younger, I really missed not having a father in my life. It is not something I regret now because I do thoroughly believe that what happens happens for a good reason. And it's like a snowball effect. Not having a father made me grow up quicker. If, because I grew up quicker, it was I had to make decisions very early in life that led me to this point right now. That gave me this sort of this spirit that back in the day took me to the radio station 9 years ago when I had a very comfortable life in Australia. Get rid of everything and come to LA. People don't come to LA or stay in LA for no reason. But I had this belief that there is a place for me somewhere where people will understand me, and it was LA. So at this point in my life, I do really believe that there really isn't anything I regret.
Mm-hmm.
There's things that happen in my life and there's people you meet. Of course, listen, like everybody else, you meet the wrong people and you get betrayed, and your heart gets broken, and all these things happen to me the way they happen to you and your viewers and your readers. They happen to all of us, but it's not what happens to us. It's what we do with it. It's like boxing, it's not how many times you fall down or get knocked down, it's how many times you get up. And it's the sort of the part of the conversation you and I had earlier where we talked about whether or not people choose to pursue what they're passionate about. A lot of people don't do it because they find a reason not to, because it's easy not to. It's comfortable to not stand out and to just fit in. But that's not what we're born to be. Ships, yachts, they are a lot more comfortable in the harbors and in the clubs and marinas, but that's not what they're built for. They're built for ocean racing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you watch any of the Whitbread videos of the Volvo ocean racing videos, you see what these boats, the pounding they take. This is what people are. We are made to take the pounding. God's never going to give us anything that we are not prepared for. So if we choose not to take the pounding, that's a completely different thing. You can buy a beautiful boat and put it in a harbor and it's like just sit on the beach and look at it. But that's not what I chose to do in my life, and I get pounded a lot.
All right, so tell me about some of these poundings. What are the
Personally and
poundings?
professionally, but I choose to get up and I choose to, I something happened to me a couple of years ago, which was very difficult for me. And what came out of that was a realization that was a lesson that I needed to learn. Everybody comes into our lives to bring a message, to deliver the message. Whether or not we're able to sort of receive the message, it's up to us. But the message is there, and whether it takes us a day or a week or a whole lifetime to decode that message, that's up to us. But the message is there, and there was a message in everything that ever happened to me. And once I started to think in those terms, I started to see those messages quicker. And I started to understand that everything that happens to me is for my own benefit. And once you grow over it, once you get out of it, you realize that this is actually making you stronger. They're not just words, they're not just sayings, they're not just like Facebook memes. These things are real. The energies are real. What you think is real. It's like
So
what
how
we
did
do.
you
Yeah.
But how did you get to that point where so you're being pounded down, you're going through something very difficult, and then you start to see it differently? So like, how did you either make yourself look at it differently, or what happened?
You ask questions of universe, of yourself. I travel a lot. And a lot of the time, in the beginning of the road trip, I would ask questions of, I travel by myself, for example. A lot of the time I travel by myself, I do a lot of soul searching. And I would ask the questions of the universe, why this is not happening, or why this is happening. And you don't get an answer straight away, but most of the time, a lot of the time, towards the end of the trip, those answers will always be answered. What happens, in fact, you're looking inside, you're looking into your heart, you're connecting with the universe, you're opening up to what's around you, and the answers are there. We just got to see them.
That's so interesting. So you take trips by yourself for the purpose
Yeah.
of soul searching. I totally get that. I don't do that anymore, but when I was younger, I would do that a lot. And I don't think I did it intentionally though. Like I would know that, oh, you know what? Something's going on for me and I need to get in the car and go somewhere and like take a trip by myself, and I would do it. And just like you said, that kind of thing would naturally happen. I haven't done that in a long time, but I do think that's a natural way of bringing that out. And I don't think a lot of people do it, but I recommend it. It's a good idea.
There is so much noise around us, and the way information is processed a lot of the time is through is by our brain, and I believe that we should be processing information with our hearts, because that's where the honesty is. Brain, when we are born as kids, we think with our hearts. There is nothing that's impossible to a kid. The kid doesn't sort of crawl. Did you ever watch a kid try to learn to walk? A kid is like, he gets up and like falls down, gets up and falls down. The kid never says to himself or decides to himself, you know what, this is not for me. I'm not gonna walk.
Right. Or it wasn't meant to be. I'm terrible at this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
not a sign.
It's a sign. I'm not meant to walk. No,
right.
The kid is just like gets up and walks, and eventually he walks, and then he runs, and then he goes to the moon. That's what people are. But as we get older, we start to use more of this than this, and this is why we tell ourselves, oh no, this isn't right, and I should be dressing like this, and I should be behaving like that, and I should be talking to these people or hiding this, or this is. And it's not the right way to live life. Each to their own. I'm not preaching here, but that's not what I do, and it's not what I believe is the right way to live life, or really to find the meaning of life. So we really got to use more of this than this.
Yeah. And I think a little bit of a combo too. You can figure things out with your brain, right? But by using your heart too, like I'm not going to discount the brain because I'm a therapist too. So I know about like thinking, analyzing, figuring things out, right? But at the same time, yes, what you're saying is get back to that childhood natural ability to just be who you are without like cutting yourself down in your brain and overthinking things, and all the head trash doesn't do you any favors.
But if, for example, like even being a therapist, if, for example, you have a choice to make a decision, one being based on your analysis that came through your brain, based on your mind, and another one is your gut. What are you going to do? What are you going to follow?
Definitely gut. And
gut doesn't come from your head, does it?
No, but I'm an intuitive person. So by nature, I believe in intuition a lot. Like I definitely feel things. Not everybody is like that, but I do. And also your narrative that comes from your brain can be faulty, right? You can teach yourself a certain narrative about yourself or people in your life or whatever. So you tell yourself this narrative you don't even realize you are. And then it becomes like a permanent thing in your life that you believe to be true. And
absolutely.
It has no basis in reality. So it's like, but you can use your brain to reverse that at the same time. Like that's something that I would do maybe in therapy is like, well, what is this narrative that you've created for yourself? And now let's poke holes in it and show you that actually that's a false narrative. And now let's look at what the reality is. You know what I mean?
Right. But you're basically trying to undo what your brain did.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So you're using your brain to undo what your brain did to
and
you.
where does the intuition come from? If you take the you know how we have the reptilian brain, the mammal brain, and then we have the human brain.
Mm-hmm.
You take the human brain out of the equation, we're good. It's the human brain that creates all the problems.
Yes.
You know, so
Yes. It's like,
I
yes.
can talk about it forever.
I know. I can too. I feel you. But tell me what one of your most memorable trips was to where then when you did one of these soul searching trips. What was your destination, or do you not have a destination?
You know, I don't think I ever have a destination. I when I just came to LA, what I used to do was every week I would pick a place on the map, just point my finger, and I would just go there. If I could get there and come back within a day, and then once a month I would go somewhere and spend a night there. So I would take those 4 trips a month, and it didn't matter to me where you go because it's not to sort of listen. Of course, there were sort of places where I wanted to visit, you know, like Mount Rushmore and South Dakota and New York, Moscow, all those places, right? I remember I was in the south of Portugal, and there's a mountain, a hill. You know, the south of Europe was taken over by so many different civilizations over the years, and there's a hill that has 3 castles on it, each belonging to the previous civilization. And I got there after hours. It was after dark. I didn't know, but I wasn't gonna turn around and go back. So I climbed over the fence, and I walked in there, and it was a medieval castle. And it was, you know, when you watch movies about knights and kings and queens, and then you see an old castle that's sort of like in ruins, but it's overgrown by the vines, but all the turrets and the you know the sort of the walls are still there.
Uh-huh.
And you can imagine, because all the castles basically are built in the same way, and you can imagine what it was like. And so I remember standing on the wall of that castle. There's nobody around me, it's pitch black, and I see this. I'm on the wall of this castle, overgrown with vine, and I'm looking down the hill into this valley that goes all the way down to the Atlantic, and the moon was coming up, and it created the moonwalk. And I'm looking down, and I see the whole valley on the palm of my hand that becomes the ocean, that becomes the moon, and there's nobody around me. And I was, you know, I grew up on books like that, and I history is something I was always fascinated with. And it was really special. I still remember that. I took that trip 20 years ago, and I still remember.
Very powerful. I mean, it's that thing again with the music. You just feel it now all inside,
Yeah.
Right? It stays with you. There's just something about the feeling, and it did it. That's incredible.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna ask you one more kind of serious question, deep question, and then I just have a couple, like 5 or 6 little quickies, and then we'll wrap up. Sound good?
Sure. Sounds good.
All right. So the question that I usually like to ask at the end is, who do people think you are? You're famous. You have some people think they project their own thoughts onto, oh, you know, you must be like this or whatever. So what do you think the image is that people have of you?
I think everybody else got their own perception of me. Regardless of how well they know me, I think everybody's kind of, you know, it's like the artists, the painters. They don't paint the model. They paint their own imagination of what the imagination sees. And I think everybody's perception of one another is not really what the person is. It's what they think the person is. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. So I don't know. I don't think there is one. I don't think there is one.
Right. So you think that all different people, based on whatever their experiences are, see you a different way. Which
not just necessarily experience. I mean, most of the people that, you know, when I do the live broadcasts, I don't know most of those people. I don't know most of the fans. I mean, hopefully, you know, one day we'll kind of cross paths and we'll be able to do open panels and things like that, and I'll get a chance to meet our friends. But right now, I don't have this opportunity, and right now, I don't know those people. But I feel like we know each other, and I feel like they know me, and they feel that they know me. Well, you know, some of them continue to call me Oleg. Sometimes some of them continue to call me Yevgeny. You know, and some of them call me Costa, and it's you know, and then you get abused for you know, spoiling and telling something, commenting on something that happened during the New York premiere of Homeland, and people in India or England haven't seen it yet, and then it's your fault. Like,
Oh, that's
you
not
know,
fair. That is not fair at all.
it's not, but it's one of those things, you know, and
Yeah.
then sort of it's kind of it's part of the territory. You got to figure out, okay, well, at the end of the day, it's like the previous conversation you and I had. What's, you know, what do you think of yourself? You
That's
know,
my
what
next
is that?
question. That's
Right.
the
What's
question.
that what is that perception, and how easy is it for people's opinion to lead you astray, to kind of to influence you? I don't, you know, I other people's opinions never mattered to me. I think that's one of the reasons I was able to do what I did. You know, and a lot of, you know, often people ask me, you know, what, you know, how does it, how do you become successful? What do you do? It's like, it's very simple. You give it everything you have. Like, it's, there's no sitting on the fence. You can't sort of want to be an actor and then at the same time have a plan B. My plan B is another way of achieving plan A. I'm sure I stole it from somebody, but it's so true. It's not, there is no plan B. What defines you? It takes a few career moves, or a few tasks in life to find who you are. You went through accounting and therapy to come to now journalism, and I took all these tasks in life to, and I don't even know where I'm going yet. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So but what I do know is that I listen to my heart, and what I do know is that it absolutely doesn't matter to me what I mean. I listen to people and I listen to their opinion, but at the end of the day, nobody's opinion is going to be more important than my own. If I feel that this is the right thing to do, then I will do it. And it cost me, listen, truth be told, it cost me a lot of relationships. It cost me a lot of fights with my family. It cost me a lot of fights with my friends. Um, but at the end of the day, they are not living my life. I'm living my life. And what we need to remember as people, as we make all those hard choices in life, is that, you know, if somebody tells you you can't do it, you got to remember is that they can't do it. Doesn't mean that you can't do it. And you just got to keep going, and you got to keep listening to your heart, and you got to be making decisions that are right for you. And so I don't have an understanding of who I am. I'm still looking for it. I don't know the, you know, meaning of life and what I'm going to be in 20 years time or 5 years time. I don't know. um, I'm enjoying the journey. I'm enjoying, to me, it's not about to get somewhere. I don't have a dream of getting this award or making that film. I have ideas, I have desires, I have goals, certain projects I want to be a part of, but that's not the end goal. Because the beautiful thing about potential is that you can have a dream, but then once you get there, another dream comes, and that's how it grows. Our potential changes as we achieve certain things. And it's beautiful to have achievable potential, achievable dreams, achievable goals, because once you achieve that, your view changes. It's like climbing the mountain. Imagine, like, if you think of, I want to just climb to the top, you'll never climb to the top. What you got to think about is, I want to climb there. So when you climb there, your view changes and you can see so many other places you can go to. But if you're just climbing to the mountain, you'll get there, but then you're going to miss everything in between. So I don't want to miss what's in between. I want to see what else is out there. I want to experience the journey between here and the top of the mountain. And that's kind of how I see it.
I love that. And I know you don't care about anybody's opinion, but I'm going to give you a little therapist opinion anyway. So my therapist
All right.
opinion is you're in good shape. So whatever that perspective is, and it's perspective, it's from your heart, but I think your brain is a little involved too.
Oh, very involved. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I fight with my brain all the time. Are you kidding?
yes, yes. The battle of the heart and the brain. I feel you,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah, yeah.
all working there, and I like where you are. So I'm going to give you a good positive feedback for that. Therapist
Thank you.
feedback.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for your professional opinion. Thank you.